What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the world according to Briggs. How are you doing? I really want to know. Let me know in the comment section below. I always like hearing about your good and your bad. Today's video is about something bad. Tornadoes. Tornadoes, twisters, cyclones, whatever you want to call them. When they show up, nothing good happens. No farmer has ever said, you know what, I'm so thankful for that tornado. I had too much corn to harvest and too many cows to milk. That tornado actually cleared an entire field and launched 10 cows into the heavens. Holy crap, did it detail my truck too? Thank you, Mr. Tornado. If you're not Farmer Frank, you know tornadoes can do some serious damage. National Geographic reports tornadoes kill around 82 people a year and injuring about 1,600. Property damage caused by tornadoes is kind of hard to calculate. While researching this, I found numbers that were all over the place. Estimates show that tornadoes caused $3.4 billion in damages in 2019, but over the last 25 years, it's estimated that damages get between $2.5 billion and $4 billion a year, adjusted to 2020 numbers. Today we're ranking the states by how many tornadoes the 10 most active states get a year on average over the last 10 years. That was a mouthful. I could probably explain that better, but you get the idea. What do they average every 10 years? What do they average every year over the last 10 years? I'll also give you what they saw last year, including the deaths. All right, let's take a look. Number 10, Alabama. The Yellowhammer State has just over 5 million residents, and a good portion of them have had to grab some valuables and run into a basement at one time or another. If you look at this map, you can see that Alabama is right here in one of the most active sections of the country. They're right next to Mississippi, which had a record year last year of 127 tornadoes, but they didn't make the list. They would have been number 13. But in 2020, Alabama saw 78 tornadoes and had 5 deaths. That is up from their average of 44 and 2 deaths. Number 9, Missouri. The Show Me State and its 6 million residents are our first dive into what is known as Tornado Alley. There are 6 states in Tornado Alley, and they are all on this list. Missouri has all the things that you need to have a lot of tornadoes. A lot of flat land, and I guess a lot of trailer parks. They always seem to be tearing those things up. Last year, Missouri didn't make the list, but in the last 5 years, they've made it into the triple digits twice, and in 2019, they had 98 tornadoes. In 2008, the state went insane with tornadoes. They had 153. But Missouri averages 45 tornadoes a year and 3 deaths. Number 8, Minnesota. Minnesota has it rough when it comes to weather. Tornadoes, serious blizzards, and incredibly cold winters. They also get their fair share of ice storms. In 2020, the 5.6 million residents of Minnesota saw 69 tornadoes and had 1 death, but their average is 45 with 2 deaths. Number 7, Iowa. The Hawkeye State is another Tornado Alley state. They never seem to get the most tornadoes, but they're middle of the road when it comes to the top 10 normally. Iowa has just under 3.2 million residents and about as many cornfields. So, that's like prime tornado country. Like I said, they usually are around in the middle of the top 10. But last year, they fell out of the top 10 with only 31 tornadoes. And they didn't even have a single death last year, so that's really good. Wasn't good in 1968. On May 15th of that year, they had a tornado outbreak. The hardest hit was Charles City, Iowa, where an F5 tornado slammed into this small town. 13 people were killed, 450 were injured, 76 were hospitalized, 337 homes were completely destroyed. Losses were estimated to be about $30 million back then. That's about $225 million today. Iowa averages 51 tornadoes every single year, and they average about 3 deaths. Number 6, Colorado. The Centennial State is in Tornado Alley, but really just part of it. The eastern side of Colorado is kind of flat, just like Nebraska, Kansas, and Iowa. The western side, no, you got the Rocky Mountains there, and they don't get many tornadoes. They do get them occasionally, but nothing like the eastern side of the state. Colorado averages 53 tornadoes a year, and they only average 1 death. That part of the state is sparsely populated, so not many people die out there from tornadoes. Number 5, Illinois. When one of your nicknames is the Prairie State, you gotta expect to have a lot of tornadoes. It's just how it is. It's also known as the land of Lincoln. He really has no serious connection with tornadoes, but the Prairie State does. Illinois has one major metro area, and that's the Chicago metro area. After that, you got smaller cities like Peoria, Springfield, Bloomington, things like that, Rockford. The rest of this state is wide open prairie, it seems like. In 2020, Illinois had 71 tornadoes, and they didn't have any deaths, so that's really good. On average, they see 54 tornadoes and average 2 deaths a year. Number 4, Nebraska. The only thing that shocked me about Nebraska is they didn't have a lot more. I mean, come on. It's where Dorothy went up to see Oz and all that. It's known for its tornadoes. Just kidding. It's actually Kansas. How many of you were typing out a message? But to be honest, if you drove through the area and you didn't see a sign, you wouldn't know the difference between Kansas and Nebraska. Nebraska is another state that is in the Tornado Alley section of the United States, but last year they didn't even make the top 10. They did have a couple little outbreaks, but nothing was major last year, and I've seen a couple reports. One said they had 34 tornadoes in 2020, and another one said they had 39, so who knows. Nebraska's average is 57, and they average about 2 deaths. Number 3, Florida. Who saw this one coming? I never knew Florida got tornadoes. I thought they only got hurricanes, brush fires, and ravenous pods of manatee. Last year, Florida was number 7. They had 65 tornadoes, 0 deaths, so that's good. But the almost 22 million residents of the Sunshine State normally see 66 tornadoes, and they normally get 1 death. Number 2, Kansas, the real home of Dorothy, Toto, and that Twister. This is the state that everyone associates tornadoes with. It's always going to be Kansas, and that's because of the Wizard of Oz, oddly enough. They get a bunch. They showed up in the 2nd spot, but they're not the worst. The worst has far more than they do. In 2020, they didn't even make the top 10. They got 44, and no fatalities. On average, Kansas sees 96 tornadoes, and they average about 4 fatalities. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. That starts back up on October 1st, so this coming Friday, we'll have a new video up there. Go by, check it out. We took a couple months off, but we're back at it. All right, on to number 1. And number 1. Texas. That's right, the Lone Star State gets their fair share of tornadoes. And actually, if you look at the stats, it seems like they're getting other people's share as well. All along the border with Oklahoma and the Red River Valley area is where Texas sees most of their tornadoes. You'll get them other places, but a majority of them happen in that area. And we're talking Texarkana to Wichita Falls and all along that area. North of Dallas. The Dallas-Fort Worth area is no slouch either. They get a good amount of tornadoes, as does Tyler, Texas. And the land bordering Louisiana and Texas. I found it strange Louisiana wasn't on this list. They came in at number 11. Like South Dakota, Louisiana's had some brutal years, but then they have other years where they barely got any. So that's why their average wasn't as high as some of the other states on here. But Texas, they always show up in the top 10, and they're at number 1. In 2020, Texas saw 102 tornadoes touch down, and they only had 4 fatalities, which is great. In 2015, they had 228 tornadoes touch down in that state. Most years, Texas is in triple digits, and that's how they ended up at the number 1 spot with 155 tornadoes on average. They also average 6 deaths a year. Hurricanes, tornadoes, and that ice storm that shut down the electrical grid last year. It's rough times in Texas when it comes to weather. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of this one. In case you're thinking about moving to Texas, this is something you might want to know about. Now, keep in mind, tornadoes are like any other kind of disaster, except for earthquakes. I mean, if they have an earthquake, pretty much everyone feels it if it's a serious one. But tornadoes and hurricanes, not everyone in the state is affected by them. Few people see tornadoes every now and then, but when they show up, they do a lot of damage. All right, everyone, have a great day. Be nice to each other.